Hello everybody, I'm Dan. Welcome to my Java tutorial series. Throughout my tutorials, I'll teach you Java using just Notepad and the command prompt. The order in which my tutorials are organized on both my website at javacjava.com and my YouTube playlist is designed to maximize learning by building on concepts from prior tutorials. This tutorial is about the inner class, regular inner class more specifically. I'm going to open up my web browser to my website, javacjava.com, and select Begin and scroll all the way down here to Inner Classes. Now, the inner class is one of the 4 nested classes that I briefly discussed in my Introduction to Nested Classes tutorial. And if you haven't watched that, I'd highly recommend watching that before continuing here. Now, the inner class is defined at the member level and does not have the keyword static, right, in the declaration. By member level, I'm talking about the same level where instance variables and methods are declared. So in this particular case, we have outer, and then we've got outer's class body here, and then here's a member variable, right? An instance variable specifically. And then at the same kind of level there, we got this other class declaration here, inner, right? And here's its class body, right? So these are the members of this outer class. Now, the first thing to understand about an inner class is that it is a member of the class that it is contained in. Therefore, you can only access the inner class through an instance of the class that it is contained in. Let's imagine that the outer class above is contained in a file called Outer.java, right? That's pretty straightforward. When we compile the source code file, we end up with 2 class files, Outer.class and Outer$inner.class. The Outer$inner.class file is named so because inner is a member of outer, and inner cannot be accessed without an instance of outer. Now, here are some rules for an inner class. An inner class can access all members of the outer class, even private. An inner class can have all levels of access applied, public, protected, private, default. An inner class can be final or abstract. An inner class can extend other classes and implement interfaces. Now, these ones right here, these 3 right here, if you're interested in that, I'm not going to be going over that. It's just like any other class. I got tutorials on all this stuff: private, protected, public, default, final, abstract, and extending classes, interfaces. I'm not going to go over that. I will go over this first one in detail here about accessing members of the outer class. Now, an inner class can be instantiated using the .new syntax. An inner class is not a subclass of the outer class. There is no inheritance, okay? And an outer class is not a superclass of the inner class. No inheritance, right? They are members. So even though, even with class being inside of outer, right? Outer is not the superclass of inner, right? In other words, we have an extended outer, right? It's just a member. Now that gives it special privileges as it can see, like for example, string s. It could display right after this, for example, this right here, it could display system.out.println s, right? And it'll actually, display whatever the value of s is here. Now conversely, outer cannot see I, right? This is a member of the inner class here, and it only goes one way. Inner classes can see this way here. Now, you can create an instance of the inner class from the outer class and then refer to its members, but that's a little bit different than the way that we access the members of the outer class from within the inner class. Okay. And once again, an inner class cannot declare static variables or static methods. If static is involved in any way, then we're not talking an inner class anymore. We're talking a static nested class, which is a whole different tutorial there, a whole different set of rules. Let's come down here and highlight all the source code. And I got a lot going on in today's thing here. Control-C to copy, or right-click and select copy. I'm going to minimize or remove this off screen. I've got a shortcut to the command prompt on my desktop, but if you don't, you can create one really fast by right-clicking, selecting New Shortcut, CMD, Next, and Finish. It's just that easy. If you're coming into my tutorials for the first time, what you want to do is type in javac, which is Java compiler command. You should see all this stuff scroll by. However, if you receive an error message, watch my tutorial on installing and configuring the Java development kit. You want to make sure you get that done properly before continuing. CLS to clear the screen, CD space /, CD is short for change directory, / tells it to go to the root. I'm going to make a directory here called Java using the md command. I already have that folder, but if you don't, I'll go ahead and create it for you. I'm going to make another directory here, and I'm just going to call this inner class and change directories to the inner class folder. And I'm going to notepad tester.java. Normally I'd call it inner.class.java, but I'm going to have my main method inside of the tester.java, or inside of the tester class instead of a class named inner class, right? So, but that would be confusing. Anyway, let's go ahead and just create that there and Control V to paste. And I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna select File and Save. And I've got a bunch of stuff underneath this the single line comment here. We're just gonna ignore that for right now, but I've got these two classes at the top here. Tester, which of course contains my main method entry point there. And then I've got this class Outer, okay? Now inside of Outer, in the first two statements, I'm declaring two instance variables, both of them private, just for, maximum restriction on the privileges there. And then I've got this main method called display_st, right? And basically, it's displaying S and T to the console and displaying a new line. All right, and then in the inner class here, right, I'm essentially doing like similar to the same thing here. I've got two member variables called S and T right here that are members of the inner class here. And then I've got this other method here called display_st, right? And what I'm going to do is no, I won't do that quite yet there. And we're just going to kind of ignore this right at the moment here. Let's come back up here to the main method here. I'm going to comment out some lines. And I'm going to put something in here so I don't forget it later. I'm just going to comment it out though. All right. Okay, so the first thing we got in the main method entry point is outer. We're going to create an outer type. Outer is a reference variable, lowercase outer, new outer. And then we're going to invoke the display_st method on that, okay? So let's come up here and save this. Let's clear our screen. Java C tester, Java tester. And so what we've got is basically we're displaying S and T to the console, which is outer S and outer T, right? These two string literals here. So that's all pretty straightforward there. And of course I called this method the same as this method for a reason, just to prove that there isn't any inheritance. Inheritance is not what's going on. It's going to look like inheritance is going on, especially with accessing some of the members, but in fact it isn't. So inside of the display_st here, what we're going to do is display to the console S and T. So the question is, now what will this display? Will it display this S up here, which is inner S, or will it display this up here, which is outer S? Same thing with the T. This one or this one. Be interesting to see, right? And then I'm going to use this .s and this .t and display that. So that'll be, does this apply to this or this? Okay. And the last thing I'm going to do is display outer.this.s. And does outer.this.s apply to outer? And then where's the this taken? Is it this or this? And then .s. So let's just come up here and save this. And now I have to uncomment stuff, and it's going to get a little complicated here. All right, so because if you remember back, I said that the inner class is a member of the outer class, so we have to use some special syntax when creating an instance of that new inner object, so we can invoke our display_st method, this display_st method down here. Okay, and the way we do this is we say outer.inner, right, and then a reference variable. I'm just calling it lowercase inner, right, equals, and then outer. Now this outer up here is a reference variable pointing to this outer object. And then we have to do this .new, right? And then inner, right? If we had just this right here, it'd be like, oh, I'm used to that a million times, right? So basically we end up creating a reference to a new inner object. And at this point, after this statement is finished executing here, we have two objects. We have an outer object and we have an inner object, right? An outer, we can invoke display_st, and inner, we can invoke display_st. Now you're just going to have to get used to this syntax right here and this syntax right here, because that is the way that you create inner objects, inner class objects, nested class objects. So basically, let's go ahead and run that and see what results we get down here, okay? Let's just say save on that. And let's run it. Okay, so we first display st, invoke the display st here from outer, just like we told it to, right? And we got outer s and outer t. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna clear my screen so you get all that stuff from the previous run off there. It's running again, right? So outer s, outer t, right? And then, let's come right up here. So the first one after we displayed this st, so the s and the t are in fact just the local s and t. I shouldn't say local, I should say instance variables of the inner class right here, right? So inner s, inner t. That's exactly what we got right here. Now, when we do this dot s, that is actually this refers to the inner object there. This dot s is inner s, this dot t is inner t. Now, what is going on when we say outer, right? We know this is outer, and then we do dot this. Does this mean outer dot this? No. Anytime, this always refers to the current instance that you're working with, right? And because we specify outer dot and then this, we are still up here in this right here. And so we can specifically put a dot s on the end of this, and now we're referring to this s up here. So it's going to display outer s and outer t by doing it. And that's the way you can do the syntax on that. All right. I wanted to prove to you guys that there is no inheritance going on. So for example, if we put the at override annotation in here and we try to recompile this, we're going to get an error message. Method does not override or implement a method from a super type, okay? So in other words, outer is not the superclass of inner, right? We don't inherit display st at all. All right, now it's going to get a little strange in just a minute there because I'm going to do some stuff there. We can in fact invoke display st from within inner, right? And we can in fact see of these guys up here too as well. All right, let's get ready for the strange here, right? I am going to comment this out. You know, I'm gonna get rid of the override. I think I've proven my point on that particular thing here, right? I'm gonna comment this out and comment this out, comment this out and comment this out. All right. Now we no longer have s or t in here, right? Now, what it will do is, since we don't have an s or a t at the member level in class inner, it has access to these s and the t's out here in outer. It will actually now display, basically when we run this again here, right? It'll invoke this one, which will display st, and then it'll invoke inner and display st, and I'll show you what this does here, right? Okay, so let's clear our screen. Let's recompile. And let's Java tester, right? Let's rerun it, right? So we get outer s and outer t, okay? So you're going, oh, okay, well that's quite interesting. And so I kind of set all this up, you know, specifically designed this tutorial so that we would have the variables the same name and everything like that, so you could see how all this works there, right? With an absence of s or t as member variables in the inner class there, it'll go ahead and read the outer s and t's there. Now you might be thinking, oh, well that should prove that we have inheritance. And the answer is no, you don't have inheritance. It's just a special rule for Java. It's just basically, it can see s and t in the outer classes, right? Much less like it can, as a matter of fact, this will prove it to you here, right here, right? So if I comment out display st, right? Inner no longer has display st. So if there was inheritance going on, we should inherit display st from our superclass if outer was our superclass, which it isn't. So we're going to get an error message instead. All right, so there we go. We tried to compile it there. Cannot find symbol on the inner.display st, right? So we didn't inherit jack squat, right? Inheritance is not what's going on here. So let me put this right back here. I'm gonna do something really interesting here. And now I'm going to, you know what? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna leave this commented out here, right? I'm going to just do I'm just calling this blah, you know, this isn't named very well, but I'm actually going to just call display st, right? And so just created this new simple little method blah, and it will invoke the display st, right? We're not going to inherit display st. We obviously don't inherit, we didn't inherit a display st. We've already proven that by commenting that out, right? But inner has access to the members of outer, so we can still invoke it from within the inner class, right? But we don't inherit it. All right, so let's come up here and save this. Let's clear our screen and let's recompile. Oh, you know what? I need to change this to blah, right? We're going to invoke the blah method on the inner class, and let's just come up here, save this, and recompile it and rerun it. Okay, see outer s, outer t, right? So this is our first display st right on the outer object. And then when I invoked blah, right, it went ahead and invoked display st from the outer class. All right, so hopefully you're not too thoroughly confused at this point in time, but you know, if you're learning new concepts, what I recommend is watch this video over and over again. If you're sticking with it there, hey, hang with me and keep going. I'm just going to keep talking about a few more things about these inner classes here. So that's pretty much it for this section right up here. Now I have at the very bottom down here another class called tester2. Now inside of tester2, I've got an inner class on the inside of it as well, right? And so the other thing to think about here is, I'm just going to run through some stuff here. And I've got a main method entry point in tester2 as well, okay? And you probably, I don't know, I've never demonstrated, you know, a single source code file with two classes and two main method entry points. So it's really pretty simple. I'll just Java space tester2 to invoke this class from the command line after we compile it there. But what I'm going to demonstrate here is you might just be thinking, okay, if we've got an inner class in the same class where we have the main method, can we simply just do this, inner equals new inner, right? And the question, and let's go ahead and see what happens, right? Let's go ahead and save this. Let's clear our screen out here. Let's recompile. Okay, we're going to get an error message here, right? We do inner equals new inner. Non-static variable. This cannot be referenced from a static context. So because main method is in fact static, we cannot do this because our inner class is not static, right? And you know, if it was static, it'd be a static nested class, not an inner class. All right, so we still have to create an object of tester2 and use the same syntax in order to invoke that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment these guys out here real quick there. So tester2.inner, right? And inner equals new tester2 new tester2 dot new inner, right? And this is just doing it all in one single line instead of, you know, up here where I created a new outer object and then I invoked the outer on the inner and everything like that. And I was going to demonstrate that up here, but we moved on and now I'll demonstrate it down here. So tester2.inner, right? Because here's our tester2 class, here's our inner class, and then our inner reference variable equals new tester2 object, right? And then I'm just going to chain this right off of here by using the dot operator, invoking the new operator to create a new inner class object on that. Now, I can invoke the display s method on the inner class, and all I've got down here in the inner class is the string s equals whatever, and I'm just displaying s, you know, and to the console there. All right, let's go ahead and save this. Let's recompile this. I'm going to do Java and then tester2 because I want to invoke the tester2 class here, right? And we just simply get whatever. All right, so that's all well and good. We can even do this, for example, here, because we already learned about that we can access stuff from the outer class too, right? So let's just come up here and save this. And just to reiterate stuff, I like to reiterate stuff. Repetition's good, right? We can still do that and everything like that, okay? So let's talk about some other stuff here. I've got this non-static method here called interesting method. and it actually displays inner, right? An inner type, inner reference variable equals new inner, right? And this will work from a non-static method. And then we can invoke the inner.displays. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to comment this stuff out up top here, and I'm going to, just to create a new tester2 object and invoke the interesting method class off of that, which will in turn create a new inner object in the normal syntax that you're used to, right? And then we'll invoke the displays on here, which will then turn around and do that, okay? So let's go ahead and save this. Let's clear our screen. Hold on, I gotta recompile it, right? And then rerun it. Okay, so we still get our whatever on that, right? And of course, you know, I'm throwing a lot at you, you know, and like I said, if you just get frustrated or confused or whatnot there, you know, come back and watch it again and so on and so forth there if you're not, and it will stick, you know, sometimes these new things just take time to stick there, so. So that's how we can kind of do that. We can definitely still use that same syntax from within the outer class, because this is basically a member level thing here, where this method here, right? And then we can create a new inner object in this member level here from within this side, the outer class, okay? Now we're still following the rules that you can only create an instance of an inner class from within the outer class, because technically, since we are running the Java tester2, right? That's an instance of the outer class is actually creating an instance of, we're creating an instance of the inner class from within an instance of the outer class, okay? All right, so the last thing that I kind of want to go over with that you'll see every now and then is, is sometimes a method will return back an instance of an inner class, okay? And that's what I've done here. I've set up, and the return type is going to be an inner type, right? And then get inner reference. And I'm just going to return a new inner, right? Because just the same way we could assign a reference variable up here from a non-static method, we can say new inner. I can just say return new inner. And so this get inner reference variable or method will actually just return a new inner object, right? So I can come up here and I can say, I still have to use the same syntax if I want a reference to that inner object here, right? So T and I right there, right? So TI, tester2.inner, TI, and then I can say new tester2 and then just invoke the get inner reference right off of that to come up with the reference, assign in a reference to the inner class there, right? And then I can invoke the display S on that. So let's come up here and save this and compile it and run it, and we still get our same old good old whatever. All right, so that's about all I'm going to talk about the inner class. That pretty much covers all the nuts and bolts of that. And if you hung with me and you get everything great, you are good to go. But if not, you know, just definitely give it a little bit of time, watch it again, so on and so forth. I'm going to get this off screen, and leave you guys with a couple final thoughts here. So important point, you can only access the inner class through an instance of the outer class that it is contained in. This keyword is instrumental in accessing members of an outer class from within the inner class. Static is not allowed in the inner class declaration or anywhere inside of the inner class body. Doing so makes the nested class a static nested class, not a regular inner class. Anyway, that concludes this tutorial. Thanks for watching.